this question, we are given that a container is made up of a cone and a cylinder. In the diagram, you can see that the radius of the cylinder is 3 cm, the height of the cylinder is 6 cm, and the slant height is given to us as 5 cm. Alright, so for part A, we're actually asked to find the total surface area in terms of pi. What do you mean by in terms of pi? When the question says in terms of pi, we are not supposed to use 3.142 or the value of pi in the calculator to find the answer. We are supposed to leave pi alone and your final answer must have pi. So how do we do this question? First, let's break it down. Surface area of this particular container, there's 3 portions. First, which is the curved surface area of the cone. Second is the curved surface area of the cylinder. And lastly, which is the bottom part of the container itself. Please be aware that you are not supposed to calculate the bottom of the cone because it is not part of the surface area of the container. Alright, so for part A, first thing that we do is to find the curved surface area of the cone. So curved surface area of cone. Alright, so we have to recap that the formula is actually pi RL. Okay, and now, given the diagram, the radius of the cone is actually not provided. But can you see that the radius of the cylinder and the cone is actually the same? So we can actually use 3 as the radius of the cone, and L is actually the slant height, which is 5. Alright, so we can say that 3 times 5 is 15, so it's 15 pi cm squared. Can you see that I leave my answer as in terms of pi? So this is only for the first portion. Now for the second portion, we want to find the curved surface area of the cylinder. So we have to remember the formula again, which is 2 pi RH. Alright, so now R is actually 3. So I replace it with 3, and H is actually the height of the cylinder, and it's actually 6. So you take 2 times 3 times 6. Bear in mind that you're not supposed to press pi in your calculator. So 2 times 3 times 6 is actually 36 pi cm squared. Okay, so for area, the unit is cm squared. So last but not least, we are supposed to find the bottom part of the cylinder. So the bottom, I call it the bottom circle, alright? So what is the area of a circle? It is pi r squared. And the radius is actually 3. So it's pi 3 squared, which is 9 pi cm squared. So to find the total surface area, we have to add all these 3 portions up. So the total surface area is actually 15 pi plus 36 pi plus 9 pi. So now, we add 15 pi plus 36 pi plus 9 pi, you have 60 pi cm squared. This is your final answer for part A. Alright, so now for part B, we are asked to find the volume of the container. So since the question tells us that the container is made up of a cone and a cylinder, we can break it down into 2 portions again. So now we can break it down to cone and cylinder. First, we have to find the volume of the cone. So now, we know that the volume of the cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. But in the diagram, the height is not given to us. So we have to use certain formulas to help us to find the height. So in this case, a simple trick to use is, we can actually see the cross section of a particular cone, right? It's actually a right angle triangle. Alright? I only draw half of it. So the other side is actually 2 right angle triangle actually makes up a cone. Alright, so this is actually a right angle triangle. The slant height given to us is 5, and the radius is actually 3. So we actually want to find the height. So when we are given a right angle triangle, how do we find this height? Okay, we can actually use the Pythagoras theorem to help us to find. So we use Pythagoras theorem. So we are given that the hypotenuse square is equal to the sum of the sides, right? Sum of the squares, right? So it will be h squared plus 3 squared. So we have to find h. So I make h my subject. So 5 squared minus 3 squared. So h squared is actually 16 using your calculator. And h is actually 4 or -4. Alright? Now, since we have 2 values for h, but you have to know that in this case, h is actually her height. And we have to actually reject a negative number because we cannot have a negative height. Alright? So now we know that the height of the cone is h. So we can proceed to find the volume of our cone. The formula is 1/3 pi r square h. 1/3. Our radius is 3 and our height is 4. So I replace my height with 4. Okay. So I'll have 12 pi cm cubed. Cm cubed for volume. Alright. Now we are asked to find the volume of the cylinder, which is pi r square h. So the radius is 3, the height is 6. So I simply just substitute in. I'll have 9 times 6, which is 54 pi cm cubed. Since the question asks us to find the volume of the container, I have to add the volume of the cone and the volume of the cylinder. So volume of container will be equals to 12 pi plus 54 pi, which we have 66 pi cm cubed. However, if you look at the question didn't say that we have to leave the answer in terms of time. So if you are particular with this, you can press pi together with your calculator and leave it as 3 significant figures.